"You're fired." The words echoed through the executive boardroom like a gunshot. Aurora Blake stood frozen in the doorway, her nursing badge still clipped to her scrubs, her heart shattering into 1,000 pieces as she stared at the man sitting behind the massive mahogany desk. The man she had married just 6 months ago. The man she thought she knew. "Damien, what are you talking about?" "I don't understand." Her voice trembled, barely a whisper against the cold silence of the room. Damon Cross didn't move. He sat there like a king on his throne, his gray eyes empty of any warmth, any recognition of the love they had shared. The passion that had burned between them just weeks ago had been extinguished completely, replaced by something that looked terrifyingly like disgust. "I'm talking about the fact that my wife working as a nurse in my hospital is becoming an embarrassment to my family name. People are talking, Aurora. They're saying that Damon Cross couldn't even marry within his own social circle." Aurora felt the blood drain from her face. Her hands moved instinctively to her stomach, where their child was growing. A secret she had planned to share with him tonight over a romantic dinner. A secret that now burned inside her like acid. "An embarrassment? I'm your wife, Damon. I love you. I thought you loved me." "Love." He laughed, a cold, bitter sound that cut through her like a blade. "Love doesn't change the fact that you're just a nurse, Aurora. Love doesn't make you suitable for the Cross family legacy. My family has standards. I should have listened to them from the beginning." Have you ever been told that your life's work, your calling, your very identity wasn't good enough for someone you loved? Have you ever had the person you trusted most tear down everything you'd built and call it worthless? Have you ever stood in front of someone who promised to cherish you forever and watched them look right through you like you were nothing? This is the story of a woman who was thrown away for being just a nurse. A woman who rose from that devastating betrayal to become the most powerful surgeon in the country. But what her ex-husband doesn't know is that she's carrying a secret that will change everything. A secret that's been growing for 9 years, walking and talking and carrying his eyes and his stubborn chin. If you believe that success is the sweetest revenge, hit that subscribe button right now and let me know in the comments what you would do if someone you loved told you that you weren't good enough. Stay with me, because this journey of betrayal, redemption, and ultimate reckoning will show you exactly what happens when a billionaire underestimates the power of a woman scorned. Let me take you back to the beginning of this extraordinary story and show you how a woman who was deemed not good enough became the one person who could hold a billionaire's empire in her hands. 9 years later, Dr. Aurora Blake stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office on the top floor of Cross Memorial Hospital, watching the morning sun cast golden light across San Francisco Bay. The view was spectacular. Millions of dollars worth of real estate stretched out before her, a testament to how far she had come from the trembling young nurse who had been discarded like yesterday's garbage. At 34, Aurora commanded respect throughout the medical community as one of the youngest chief surgeons in the country's history. Her name appeared in medical journals. Her surgical techniques were studied in universities. Hospitals across the nation tried to recruit her with offers that would make most people dizzy. 7-figure salaries, corner offices, research facilities named in her honor. But Aurora had built something here that couldn't be bought or stolen. She had built a reputation, a legacy, and most importantly, a life for herself and her son. Everything the Cross family had said she could never achieve now existed because she had refused to let their cruelty define her. The intercom on her desk buzzed softly. "Dr. Blake, your 9 o'clock is here. The new hospital board chairman wants to meet with you personally." Aurora smiled, straightening her white coat. After 9 years of climbing the medical hierarchy, she had finally reached the summit. Chief of surgery at one of the most prestigious hospitals on the West Coast. It was ironic, she thought, that she had achieved this position at Cross Memorial, the hospital that bore the name of the man who had thrown her away for being beneath his family standards. "Send him in, Jennifer." Aurora turned from the window, her posture perfect, her expression professional. She had learned to wear confidence like armor, to project strength even when her insides were trembling. 9 years of fighting her way to the top had taught her that showing weakness was never an option. The door opened, and Aurora's world tilted on its axis. Damon Cross walked into her office with the same commanding presence that had first attracted her 10 years ago. He was older now, silver threading through his dark hair, lines around his eyes that spoke of stress and responsibility and perhaps regret. But he was still devastatingly handsome, still carried himself with the confidence of a man who owned everything he surveyed, which, technically, he did. Cross Memorial Hospital was the crown jewel of the Cross healthcare empire, a network of hospitals and medical facilities that stretched across 3 states. And now its chairman was standing in her office, extending his hand with a professional smile. "Dr. Blake, I presume. I'm Damon Cross, chairman of the Cross Healthcare Board. Thank you for making time to meet with me." He didn't recognize her. After 9 years, after building herself into someone completely different from the young nurse he had dismissed, he had no idea who she was. The realization hit Aurora like a physical blow, though she let nothing show on her face. She had changed her hair, her style, her entire bearing. The Vivienne who had stood trembling in his foyer had been replaced by someone who built monuments to her own resilience. "Mr. Cross." Aurora shook his hand, marveling at how his touch no longer made her heart race with love. It raced now with something else entirely, something that felt like power. "Welcome to Cross Memorial. I understand you wanted to discuss the surgical department's performance metrics. Actually, I wanted to meet the woman who's been making waves in the medical community." Damon settled into the chair across from her desk, his eyes sweeping across her office with poorly concealed assessment. He took in the awards on her shelves, the framed publications, the photographs of her with medical luminaries from around the world. "Your reputation precedes you, Dr. Blake. Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins residency, fellowship at Mayo Clinic. Impressive credentials for someone so young." Aurora almost laughed at the irony. The same man who had told her she wasn't good enough to bear his family name was now praising her achievements, completely unaware that she was the woman he had destroyed. The woman who had rebuilt herself into everything he claimed she could never be. "Thank you. I believe in excellence, Mr. Cross. In this field, anything less than perfection can cost lives." Spoken like a true professional. Damon leaned forward slightly, genuine interest flickering in his gray eyes. "Tell me, what brought you to Cross Memorial? With your credentials, you could work anywhere in the world. The Mayo Clinic tried to keep you. Massachusetts General offered you a department. Why here?" Aurora met his gaze directly, searching for any flicker of recognition. There was none. She was a stranger to him. A brilliant, accomplished stranger, but a stranger nonetheless. "I was attracted by the hospital's reputation and the opportunity to lead a department that values innovation over tradition." It was a carefully chosen barb, a subtle criticism of his family's obsession with social tradition over professional merit. The old Damon might have caught it, but this older version seemed focused entirely on business metrics and hospital rankings. The passion she had once seen in him had been replaced by something harder, something more corporate. "Well, your work here has been exceptional. Patient outcomes in your department have improved by 30% since your arrival. Surgical success rates are the highest in the region. The board is very pleased. I have an excellent team. But leadership starts at the top. When you give people the tools they need and trust them to do their jobs, remarkable things happen." Damon nodded slowly, and Aurora saw something shift in his expression. Respect, perhaps, or curiosity. "I've reviewed your files extensively, Dr. Blake. You've transformed this department into something remarkable. The cardiac surgery program alone has attracted patients from across the country." He paused, his head tilting slightly to one side. "I'm curious about something. Your personnel file shows you're a single mother. That must make your demanding schedule challenging." Aurora's blood ran cold. Her personnel file mentioned Marcus, her 9-year-old son, but gave no details about his father. The information was there for emergency contact purposes only. The fact that Damon had read it so carefully made her stomach tighten with unease. "I manage my professional and personal responsibilities quite well, Mr. Cross. My son understands the importance of my work, and I've built a support system that allows me to be present for him while excelling in my career." "I'm sure you do. I only mention it because work-life balance is something I've been thinking about lately." Damon's voice grew quieter, almost reflective. "The demands of running a healthcare empire can consume your entire life if you're not careful. I've learned that lesson the hard way." There was something in his voice, a weariness that hadn't been there 9 years ago, a weight that seemed to press down on his shoulders even as he sat in her expensive leather chair. Aurora found herself studying him, looking for traces of the man she had once loved desperately enough to marry despite every warning sign. He seemed different now, harder in some ways, but also somehow diminished, as if the years had taken something from him that he couldn't get back. "Do you have children, Mr. Cross?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. A dangerous question, a revealing question. But she needed to know. Something flickered across Damon's face. Pain, perhaps, or regret. No. My ex-wife and I were never able to have children. It was one of the factors that led to our divorce. Aurora's heart stopped. Ex-wife. Damon was divorced. The marriage he had destroyed their relationship to pursue had failed. The suitable woman his family had chosen. The proper match from the right social circle. It had all fallen apart. I'm sorry to hear that. Aurora's voice was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. These things happen. Sometimes what we think we want isn't what actually makes us happy. Damon's eyes met hers, and for just a moment, she saw something raw there. Something honest. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, Dr. Blake. I'm trying to do better. To be better. That's part of why I wanted to meet with you personally. I believe this hospital needs leadership that values people over profits. And from everything I've seen, you embody that philosophy. Before Aurora could respond, there was a knock on her office door. Come in, she called out, grateful for the interruption. The conversation had veered into dangerous territory, and she needed time to collect herself. The door opened, and Marcus Blake bounded into the room with the energetic confidence of a 9-year-old who owned the world. He was tall for his age, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and startling gray eyes that sparkled with intelligence and mischief. Eyes that were an exact match for the man sitting across from Aurora's desk. Mom, Mrs. Peterson said I could come up and see your office before she takes me to school. I finished my book report early, and she said I could show you. Marcus stopped short when he saw Damon, his natural curiosity overriding his shyness. Oh, sorry. I didn't know you had a meeting. Aurora's heart pounded against her ribs as she watched Damon's face. He was staring at Marcus with a puzzled expression, clearly struck by something but unable to identify what it was. The resemblance was unmistakable to anyone who knew what to look for. The gray eyes, the stubborn set of the chin, the way Marcus tilted his head when he was thinking, exactly the way Damon did. Marcus, this is Mr. Cross, the chairman of the hospital board. Mr. Cross, this is my son, Marcus. Hello, sir. Marcus stepped forward with the confident politeness Aurora had taught him, extending his hand for a proper handshake. Nice to meet you. My mom is the best surgeon in the whole hospital. Everyone says so. Damon shook the boy's hand mechanically, his eyes never leaving Marcus's face. Something was happening behind those gray eyes. Wheels turning, connections forming, but not quite clicking into place. Hello, Marcus. That's a strong name. Thanks. It was my great-grandfather's name. Mom says he was brave and hardworking and never gave up on anything important. I'm supposed to be like that too. I'm sure you will be. Damon's voice had gone hoarse. He was still staring at Marcus with that puzzled expression, as if he were looking at a ghost he couldn't quite recognize. Aurora watched the scene unfold with her heart in her throat. This was the moment she had dreaded for 9 years. The moment when past and present would collide. She had always known it might happen. Cross Memorial was the Cross family's hospital after all, but she had never imagined it would happen like this. In her office, with no warning, with her son standing 3 feet from the father who had never known he existed. Marcus, why don't you wait in the conference room? Mrs. Peterson can help you set up your book report presentation for when I'm finished here. Okay, Mom. Marcus turned to leave, then looked back at Damon with a curious expression. Mr. Cross, do you like hospitals? Because if you work here, you should know that my mom is really important. She saves people's lives every day. That's way cooler than whatever you do. Marcus. Aurora's voice carried a gentle warning, but she couldn't help the small smile that tugged at her lips. It's quite all right, Damon said, and his voice sounded strange, distant. Your mother is clearly an extraordinary woman. You're lucky to have her. I know. Marcus grinned. She tells me that all the time. He bounded out of the office, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Aurora watched Damon carefully, trying to gauge how much he had seen, how much he suspected. Your son is remarkable, Dr. Blake. Yes, he is. He reminds me of someone. Damon's brow furrowed, and he shook his head slightly, as if trying to clear a fog. I can't quite place it. Something about his eyes. Children often have familiar faces. Aurora kept her voice steady, professional. Now, about those performance metrics you wanted to discuss. But to truly understand the weight of this moment, we need to go back to where it all began. Back to when Aurora Blake was just a young nurse with big dreams and no idea that she was about to meet the man who would change her life forever, in ways both beautiful and devastating. 10 years ago, Aurora was 24 years old and working double shifts in the emergency room of Cross Memorial Hospital. She had put herself through nursing school with scholarships and night jobs, driven by a passion for healing that had burned inside her since childhood. She came from humble beginnings, a working-class family that couldn't afford to send her to college, parents who had worked themselves to exhaustion to give her opportunities they never had. But Aurora had never let her circumstances define her. She believed in hard work, in compassion, in the healing power of medicine, and she poured every ounce of herself into her patients, staying late, coming in early, doing whatever it took to make a difference. It was on one of those late nights that everything changed. The emergency room was chaos. 3 ambulances had arrived within minutes of each other. Nurses and doctors were running in every direction. Aurora was moving between patients with practiced efficiency, her calm demeanor a steadying presence in the storm. Then he arrived, not as a patient, but as a visitor. His younger sister had been in a minor car accident, and Damon Cross had burst through the emergency room doors like a force of nature. He was 30 years old then, already running the day-to-day operations of the Cross healthcare empire, already used to getting exactly what he wanted whenever he wanted it. "I need to see my sister. Now." Victoria Cross. She was brought in 20 minutes ago. His voice commanded attention. His presence filled the room. He was tall and dark-haired, with gray eyes that seemed to see everything and dismiss most of it as beneath his notice. "Sir, your sister is being examined by the doctor. You'll need to wait in the family area." Aurora stepped in front of him, blocking his path. She was exhausted from a 12-hour shift. Her scrubs were stained. Her hair was escaping its ponytail, but she stood her ground. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Damon's voice dripped with condescension. "Right now, you're someone who's interfering with my ability to do my job. Your sister is in good hands. The best thing you can do for her is let us work." Something shifted in Damon's expression. Surprise, perhaps, or confusion. He was used to people scattering when he raised his voice, used to doors opening at the mention of his name. This small, exhausted nurse with fire in her eyes was unlike anyone he had encountered. He waited. Aurora moved through the emergency room with quiet competence, eventually reaching Victoria Cross with a gentle smile and reassuring words. She held the young woman's hand while the doctor examined her, explained every step of the process, made sure Victoria felt safe and cared for. Damon watched from across the room, and something happened to him that he didn't understand. He came back the next day, alone, making excuses about paperwork for his sister's discharge. "I wanted to thank you." He found Aurora restocking supplies in a storage room. "For last night, for taking care of Victoria. I was doing my job, Mr. Cross." Aurora barely looked up from her work. "Damon, please. Mr. Cross is my father." "Fine. Damon, your sister is doing well. She was discharged this morning." "I know." She wouldn't stop talking about the wonderful nurse who made her feel safe. "That was you. Like I said, just doing my job. Have dinner with me." The request came out of nowhere. Aurora finally looked up, surprised. "What? Dinner? Tonight? I'd like to thank you properly." "That's not necessary." "Then have dinner with me because I'm asking. Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since last night. Because you're the first person in years who's treated me like a human being instead of a walking checkbook." Aurora studied him for a long moment. She saw past the expensive suit and the commanding presence to something else beneath. Something lonely. Something searching. "I have another shift." "When does it end?" "Midnight. Then I'll wait." He did wait. 4 hours in the hospital cafeteria, drinking terrible coffee and working on his laptop while Aurora finished her shift. When she finally emerged, exhausted and skeptical, he was still there. "You actually waited." "I said I would. Most people say things they don't mean all the time. I'm not most people, and I'm starting to think you aren't either." That first coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into late-night conversations that stretched until dawn. He found himself telling her things he had never told anyone, about the pressure of living up to his family name, about the loneliness of being surrounded by people who only wanted his money, about his dreams of making Cross Healthcare about more than just profits, and Aurora found herself falling for him despite every warning bell ringing in her head. He was different when they were alone. The cold, commanding billionaire became someone warmer, funnier, more vulnerable. He listened when she talked. Really listened. He asked questions about her work, her dreams, her family. He made her feel seen in a way no one ever had. But there were warning signs, red flags that Aurora chose to ignore because love is blind and hope is stubborn. He kept their relationship secret. No public appearances, no introductions to his family. They're traditional, he explained. They need time to adjust to the idea of me being with someone outside our social circle. But I'll make them understand. Just give me time. Aurora gave him time. 6 months of secret dinners and hidden weekends. 6 months of falling deeper in love while waiting for him to claim her publicly. Then, on a quiet night overlooking the San Francisco skyline, Damon dropped to one knee. Aurora, I don't care what my family thinks. I don't care about their traditions or their expectations. You're the one I want. The only one I want. The ring was stunning, but Aurora barely looked at it. What she cared about was the look in his eyes, the sincerity she saw there, the promise. I choose you, he whispered, over everything, over everyone. She believed him. She believed him because she loved him, and love makes fools of us all. The wedding was small, intimate, just a few friends and a justice of the peace. No cross-family members attended. They need more time, Damon said. But we don't have to wait for their approval. This is about us. Aurora pushed down her doubts and said, I do. She moved into a modest apartment with him, one he said was temporary until they found something bigger. She continued working as a nurse while he disappeared for long hours handling family business. The first months of marriage were a strange contradiction. When they were together, everything felt magical. He looked at her like she was the center of his universe, held her like she was precious, made love to her like she was the only woman in the world. But he was gone so often. Late nights at the office, weekend trips to visit family, business dinners that never seemed to include her. Soon, he always said, I'm working on bringing them around. Just give me a little more time. Then Aurora began feeling sick. At first, she thought it was exhaustion. The combination of double shifts and a new marriage was taking its toll. But when the nausea persisted, when her body started changing in subtle ways, she took a test. Positive. Aurora stared at the result with tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness, but tears of overwhelming joy. A baby. Their baby. This would change everything. Surely a grandchild would force the Cross family to accept her. Surely Damon would be overjoyed. She decided to tell him that very night. Planned a romantic dinner at home. Candles. His favorite meal. She even bought a tiny pair of baby booties to surprise him with. But she never got to make that dinner, because that morning, everything changed. That morning, she was called to the hospital boardroom. That morning, she walked into a room carrying a secret in her womb and love in her heart. That morning, she walked out carrying neither. You're fired. The words echoed through the room. Aurora stood in the doorway, frozen, unable to process what she was seeing. Damon sat behind the massive desk like a stranger, like someone she had never met. Damon, what is this? What's happening? Sit down, Aurora. His voice was ice, cold, controlled, completely devoid of the warmth she had come to depend on. I don't want to sit down. I want to know why you called me here, why you're looking at me like that. I've been thinking about our situation, about what's best for everyone involved. Our situation. We're married, Damon. We're not a situation. That's precisely the problem. He stood, walking to the window with his back to her. My family has made their position clear. Having a nurse for a wife is unacceptable. It damages our reputation. It undermines everything my family has built. Your family. Aurora's voice trembled. What about our family? What about us? There is no us, Aurora. There never really was. I was foolish, caught up in something that felt good but wasn't real. Wasn't real? She felt the room spinning. You proposed to me. You stood in front of a judge and promised to love me forever. You held me in your arms and said I was everything you wanted. I said a lot of things. He turned to face her, and his expression was stone. But words don't change reality. You're a nurse, Aurora. You'll always be a nurse. And that's not suitable for the Cross family legacy. Aurora felt the words hit her like physical blows. Her hands moved instinctively to her stomach, where their child was growing. The secret that was supposed to bring them closer together now burned inside her like poison. So what are you saying? That our marriage is over? That you're divorcing me? I'm saying that this was a mistake from the beginning. My family is right. I need to marry someone from our own world. Someone who understands the responsibilities that come with a cross name. The room tilted. Aurora grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. You're serious. You're actually serious. I've had papers drawn up. You'll be compensated fairly. A settlement that will allow you to start over somewhere else. Compensated. The word tasted like acid. You're paying me off, like I'm some kind of problem that needs to be solved. I'm being practical. This is the cleanest way to end things. Aurora stared at the man she had married. The man she had trusted with her heart. The man she had believed when he promised to choose her over everything. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Her voice cracked. Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? I'm doing what's best for everyone. No. Something shifted inside Aurora. The hurt began to transform into something else. Something harder. You're doing what's easiest for you. You're too much of a coward to stand up to your family, so you're throwing me away instead. Damon's jaw tightened. I'd watch your tone, Aurora. Or what? You'll fire me twice? She laughed bitterly. You've already taken everything from me, Damon. My job, my marriage, my belief that people can actually mean what they say. What's left? Your dignity, he said quietly. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Aurora felt the secret burning inside her. The baby, his child. For one moment, she considered telling him, considered throwing the truth in his face and watching his world crumble. But then she looked into his cold eyes, saw the calculation there, the complete absence of the man who had promised to love her forever, and she made a different choice. You're right about one thing, Damon. She pulled off her wedding ring and placed it on his desk with a soft click. I am just a nurse, but at least I know my worth isn't determined by a last name. She walked to the door, her spine straight, her head high. Keep the ring. Buy yourself something that fits your standards. And when you're old and alone, wondering where it all went wrong, I hope you remember this moment. I hope you remember that you had something real, something precious, and you threw it away because you were too weak to fight for it. She didn't look back. She walked out of that boardroom and out of his life, and she took his child with her. Now let me ask you something. Put yourself in Aurora's shoes for just one moment. You're standing there, pregnant with his child, and the man who swore to love you forever just called you worthless. Would you tell him about the baby? Or would you protect your child from someone who clearly doesn't deserve to be a father? Drop your answer in the comments. Tell or don't tell. And keep watching to see how Aurora's choice shaped the next 9 years of her life. The moment Aurora stepped outside the hospital, the facade crumbled. She made it to a bench behind the building before her legs gave out. And there, hidden from the world, she broke. Sobs racked her body. Tears streamed down her face. Everything she had believed, everything she had hoped for, shattered into a million pieces. She was homeless. She couldn't go back to the apartment they had shared. Jobless. He had fired her from the only hospital in the city where she knew anyone. Pregnant, with a child whose father had just made it clear that she would never be good enough. The weight of it all pressed down on her like a physical force. For a long moment, she couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't imagine any way forward. Then her hand moved to her belly, to the tiny life growing inside her. It's just us now, little one. She whispered the words through her tears. But I swear to you, I will never let anyone make you feel like you're not enough. I will become everything they said I could never be, and I will give you the world. She wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and made the decision that would change everything. She would not just survive, she would thrive. And one day Damon Cross would regret ever letting her go. The next few months were the hardest of Aurora's life. She moved in with a fellow nurse from the hospital, sharing a tiny apartment that barely had room for one person, let alone 2 and eventually 3. She worked double and triple shifts at a clinic across town, hiding her pregnancy for as long as she could while saving every penny. The Cross family's influence spread like poison. Jobs became harder to find. Whispers followed her wherever she went. She's the one who tried to trap Damon Cross. She's the gold digger who thought she could marry into money. Lies. All of it lies. But the rumors did their damage anyway. Aurora pushed through, worked until her body screamed for rest, studied medical textbooks in whatever spare moments she could find, ate cheap food, wore secondhand clothes, did whatever it took to survive. The pregnancy was hard without support. Morning sickness and heartbreak combined into a constant fog of exhaustion and grief. She went to doctor's appointments alone, squeezed between shifts, held her own hand when she heard the heartbeat for the first time. But the baby was healthy. That was all that mattered. On a cold February night, after 22 hours of labor, Aurora gave birth to a son. He was perfect. Dark hair, tiny fingers that wrapped around hers with surprising strength. And when he opened his eyes for the first time, Aurora's heart shattered and rebuilt all at once. Gray, striking, unmistakable gray. Damon's eyes staring up at her from an innocent face. For one moment, pain threatened to overwhelm her. This child would always carry his father's features, a constant reminder of the man who had abandoned them. But as she held her son against her chest, something shifted inside Aurora. The pain transformed into purpose. The grief became fuel. This boy would never know rejection. This boy would never be told he wasn't good enough. This boy would have everything. Not through wealth, but through love. Not through family connections, but through his mother's unwavering determination. She named him Marcus, after her grandfather. A humble man who had believed in hard work and never giving up. No cross legacy. This child would build his own. Your father will never know you exist, Aurora whispered to her sleeping son. And that's my gift to you. Protection from a man who doesn't deserve to be your father. But one day, when you're old enough to understand, I'll tell you the truth. And I hope you'll see that I did everything I could to give you a life worth living. The years that followed were a blur of sacrifice and determination. When Marcus was 6 months old, Aurora enrolled in medical school. It was insane. Everyone told her so. A single mother with a baby, working as a part-time nurse while attending medical school full-time. Impossible. But Aurora had learned something important during those dark days after Damon abandoned her. Impossible was just a word people used when they were too afraid to try. She studied with Marcus sleeping in her lap, wrote papers while he played on the floor beside her, attended lectures during the day and worked night shifts to pay the bills. Her fellow students went to parties and dated and had normal lives. Aurora survived on coffee and determination and the knowledge that she was building a future for her son. Year by year, she climbed higher. Medical school, top of her class. Professors who had doubted her ate their words. She graduated with honors, her son in the audience cheering louder than anyone else. Mama doctor. Marcus said it when he was 3. It became his favorite phrase. He carried a toy stethoscope everywhere he went. Residency at Johns Hopkins, one of the most prestigious programs in the country. 18-hour shifts, followed by homework help and bedtime stories. Sleep became a luxury she couldn't afford, but she never missed a school play, never forgot a birthday, never let Marcus feel like he wasn't the center of her world. Fellowship at Mayo Clinic. Her research on minimally invasive cardiac surgery made waves in the medical community. Job offers poured in from hospitals across the country. Her name appeared in medical journals. Colleagues started seeking her expertise. Through it all, Marcus grew, bright and curious and determined, just like his mother. He asked questions about everything, built elaborate structures with blocks and Legos, talked about becoming a doctor like his mom when he grew up. He also asked about his father. Why don't I have a dad? The question came when he was 6. They were walking home from school, and he had seen the other kids being picked up by fathers and mothers together. Aurora's heart clenched, but her voice remained steady. Some people aren't ready to be parents, sweetheart. It has nothing to do with you. You are perfect exactly as you are. But where is he? Does he know about me? Aurora knelt down to look her son in the eyes. The only thing you need to know is that I love you enough for 100 parents. And nothing in this world will ever change that. You are my heart, Marcus. My whole heart. Marcus hugged her tight. And for a while, the questions stopped. But Aurora knew they would return. Knew that someday, she would have to tell him the truth about the father who had chosen status over family, the billionaire who didn't know he existed. That day would come, but not yet. After 9 years of climbing, Aurora finally reached the summit. The chief of surgery position at Cross Memorial Hospital opened unexpectedly when the previous chief retired. Aurora applied with a portfolio that could not be denied. Her credentials were impeccable. Her reputation was spotless. Her surgical outcomes were the best in the country. The hiring committee didn't connect the former nurse who had been fired 9 years ago with the brilliant surgeon standing before them. Aurora Blake had become someone entirely new. and Cross Memorial desperately needed what she had to offer. She was hired unanimously. Walking through those doors on her first day as chief of surgery felt like stepping into a dream. The same hospital that had fired her for being just a nurse now bore her name on the surgical department directory. The same hallways where she had once scurried to answer pages now parted before her with respect and deference. And the Cross family name on the building? It was on her letterhead now. Aurora stood at her new office window, looking out at the San Francisco skyline, and allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. I did it, she whispered to the memory of the girl who had sobbed on a bench 9 years ago. I did everything they said I couldn't, and now I'm running their hospital. It was the sweetest revenge she could have imagined, but fate, it seems, has a sense of humor. Because just when Aurora thought she had closed the door on her past, the past walked right into her office. And that brings us back to where we started. Damon Cross sitting across from Aurora's desk, completely unaware that he was speaking to the woman he had thrown away. Marcus bounding into the room, gray eyes meeting gray eyes, and a father seeing his son for the first time without even knowing it. After Marcus left the office, the silence stretched between them like a held breath. Damon was still staring at the door, his expression troubled. Your son, he said slowly. There's something about him, something familiar that I can't quite place. Aurora's heart pounded, but her face remained calm. He has that effect on people. Very charismatic for a 9-year-old. 9 years old, Damon repeated the words softly, as if testing them. He must have been born around the same time as... Never mind, it's nothing. Around the same time as what, Mr. Cross? Nothing. Old memories. He shook his head, straightening in his chair. Shall we continue discussing the department metrics? They finished the meeting with professional efficiency. Aurora walked Damon to her office door, shook his hand one final time, and watched him disappear down the hallway. Only when she was alone did she allow herself to collapse into her chair. That was close. Too close. She had built her life carefully over 9 years, constructed walls around herself and Marcus that she thought were impenetrable. But Damon Cross had walked right through them without even trying, and something told her this was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Aurora found herself navigating an increasingly complicated dance. As hospital board chairman, Damon had legitimate reasons to meet with the chief of surgery regularly. Budget discussions, expansion plans, quality improvement initiatives. Aurora couldn't avoid him without raising suspicion, but every meeting felt like walking through a minefield. Have dinner with me, Dr. Blake. We could discuss the new cardiac wing in a more relaxed setting. Thank you, but I prefer to keep professional relationships professional. Of course, though I must say, there's something about you that makes me want to break my own rules. Aurora deflected his advances with practiced skill, but she could see the curiosity growing in his eyes, the way he watched her during meetings. The questions he asked about her background, her history, where she had come from. He was getting closer to the truth. She could feel it. And then there was Marcus. Her son had been fascinated by the tall businessman who had visited her office. Mr. Cross seemed nice, Mom. Is he going to come back? Aurora's stomach churned. He's just someone I work with, sweetheart. He has the same eyes as me. The observation was innocent. Just a 9-year-old noticing a similarity. But Aurora felt the blood drain from her face. Lots of people have gray eyes, Marcus. I know. But his are the exact same shade. Mrs. Patterson says my eyes are unusual. She says most gray eyes have blue in them, but mine are pure gray. His were like that too. Aurora changed the subject as quickly as she could. But Marcus's words haunted her. Children see truths that adults work hard to hide. And this is the moment. Everything is about to change. 9 years of secrets, 9 years of hidden truth, all about to collide in one hospital office. Before we continue, hit that like button if you're feeling the tension right now, and subscribe if you haven't already, because what happens next is something you don't want to miss. Damon couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. Late at night, in his empty penthouse, he found himself staring at old photographs, memories he had tried to bury, a face he hadn't seen in 9 years. Aurora. He whispered the name into the darkness. She had been the one good thing in his life, the one person who had seen him for who he really was, not what his family name could provide. And he had destroyed her. His family had given him an ultimatum: divorce the nurse or be cut off from everything. The company, the inheritance, the legacy his grandfather had built. He had chosen wrong. He knew that now, had known it for years. But what tortured him most was the child, the one his ex-wife Victoria could never give him, the one he had always wanted but never had. Dr. Blake's son, Marcus, those gray eyes. Something was nagging at him, some connection his brain was trying to make. He pulled up Dr. Blake's personnel file on his laptop, read through it more carefully this time. Single mother, 9-year-old son. Medical school started 9 years ago. His blood ran cold. 9 years. He had divorced Aurora 9 years ago, had thrown her out of his life with brutal efficiency. What if? No, it was impossible. Aurora had been a nurse. This Dr. Blake was a world-renowned surgeon. They couldn't be the same person. But the timing, the son's age, those familiar gray eyes. Damon began searching hospital archives, old staff photographs, personnel records from a decade ago. And then he found it. A nursing department photo from 10 years ago, 3rd row, 2nd from the left. A young woman with a familiar face, a face he had kissed, a face he had destroyed. Aurora Blake, the same last name as Dr. Blake. The world collapsed around him. Dr. Blake was Aurora, the woman who had been just a nurse, the woman he had thrown away for being beneath his family's standards. She had become everything. Chief of surgery, medical pioneer, the person running his family's hospital, and her son, her 9-year-old son with the gray eyes. Marcus wasn't just her child. Marcus was his. Damon burst into Aurora's office without knocking. She looked up from her desk, startled by his sudden appearance. But she saw the look on his face, and she knew. She knew he finally understood. Aurora. Her name came out ragged, broken. It's you. It's been you this whole time. Aurora rose slowly from her chair. Her expression was steel. Mr. Cross, this isn't a scheduled meeting. Don't. His voice cracked. Don't pretend anymore. I know who you are. I know what I did. And I know about Marcus. The name hung in the air between them. The secret she had carried for 9 years, finally exposed. You know nothing. Aurora's voice was ice. I know he's my son. I did the math, Aurora. I saw the resemblance. God, how did I not see it immediately? He has my eyes, my chin, the way he tilts his head when he's thinking. He's mine. No. Aurora's composure cracked for the first time. He's mine. I raised him. Alone. For 9 years. While you were off marrying your suitable society bride and living your perfect cross-family life, I was working triple shifts to pay for medical school. I was studying with a baby in my lap. I was answering questions about why he didn't have a daddy like the other kids. You should have told me. Why? She was shouting now, 9 years of rage pouring out. So, you could take him? So your family could raise him to believe his mother was garbage? So he could grow up thinking love is conditional on last names and bank accounts? I protected him from you, Damon. I protected him from a father who made it clear that people like me weren't worthy of the Cross family name. I was wrong. Damon's voice broke. Aurora, I was wrong about everything. I was a coward. I let my family manipulate me into throwing away the only person who ever really mattered. That doesn't change what you did. It doesn't erase 9 years of struggle. 9 years of being both mother and father. 9 years of watching my son grow up without knowing where he came from. Damon moved toward her, his eyes wet. I spent 9 years regretting you. 9 years watching my suitable marriage fall apart because I could never love Victoria the way I loved you. 9 years becoming a man who might finally deserve what I threw away. He stood before her now, close enough to touch. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for another chance. I'm just asking, let me know my son. Let me be part of his life. Even if you never forgive me, even if you hate me until the day I die, please let me know my boy. Aurora looked at this man, this broken, honest, transformed version of the person who had shattered her heart. She thought about Marcus asking why other kids' dads came to their school plays. She thought about the empty place at the breakfast table that her son had learned to ignore but never stopped noticing. She thought about revenge. How sweet it would be to send Damon away as he had once sent her, to show him exactly how it felt to be dismissed and discarded. But she also thought about the woman she had become, the one who built bridges instead of burning them, the one who healed instead of harmed, the one who had learned that some things were worth fighting for, even when the fight was hard. If I let you into his life, her voice was rough. It's on my terms, my timeline. You don't get to play father when it's convenient. You don't get to disappear when it gets hard. You don't get to bring any of your family's toxicity anywhere near my son. Whatever you want, whatever it takes. And you need to understand something, Damon. If you hurt him, if you make promises you can't keep, if you abandon him the way you abandoned me, I will make sure you never see him again. And I will use every resource at my disposal to destroy you. Are we clear? Crystal. Then we'll start slow. You're not his father. Not yet. You're someone who knew his mother a long time ago. Someone who wants to be his friend. He's a smart kid. He'll figure it out eventually. But he deserves the chance to know you before he has to process what you did. Damon nodded, tears streaming down his face unashamedly. Thank you, Aurora. Don't thank me yet. You have 9 years of mistakes to make up for. And I'm going to be watching every single step. The first meeting happened in Marcus's favorite park. Aurora had explained it carefully to her son. Someone wants to meet you, sweetheart. Someone who knew me before you were born. He'd like to get to know you, if that's okay. Marcus was curious, but cautious. Is he nice? I think he's trying to be. They walked to the park together, Marcus holding his mother's hand. Damon was waiting by the swings, looking more nervous than Aurora had ever seen him. Marcus studied the tall man with the same gray eyes, wheels turning behind that intelligent face. You're Mr. Cross, from Mom's hospital. Yes, but you can call me Damon if you want. Marcus tilted his head. That familiar gesture. Are you my father? The question came out of nowhere, direct and unflinching. Children, after all, see truths that adults work hard to hide. Damon looked at Aurora, asking permission. She nodded slightly. Yes, the word came out thick with emotion. I am. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, why weren't you here before? I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I wasn't ready to be a father. I wasn't ready to be the man your mother deserved. And by the time I understood what I had lost, it was too late. Marcus considered this. Mom says some people aren't ready to be parents. She says it doesn't have anything to do with me. Your mother is the wisest person I know. Damon knelt down to look Marcus in the eye. She was right to protect you from me. I wasn't someone you would have wanted to know back then, but I've spent a lot of years trying to become better, and I'd really like the chance to be part of your life now, if you'll let me. Marcus looked at his mother. Aurora nodded, her eyes wet. Then he looked back at Damon. Can you catch? What? Can you catch? Because I've been practicing my fastball, and Mom's pretty good, but she says she needs someone else to help me train. Damon's face split into the most genuine smile Aurora had ever seen. I can catch. I played baseball in college. Really? Were you any good? I was okay, but I bet you're going to be better. Marcus grinned. That charming, irresistible grin that Aurora knew so well. Probably. Mom says I'm exceptional. And just like that, the first thread of connection was woven. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't resolution. It was a beginning. A fragile, tentative beginning, built on the ruins of what had been destroyed. But beginnings, Aurora knew, were all anyone could really ask for. 6 months passed. Damon kept his word. He showed up for every meeting Aurora allowed, attended Marcus's school events, learned his favorite foods, his fears, his dreams. He was patient when Marcus pushed back, consistent when doubt crept in, present in a way that Aurora had never expected. And slowly, gradually, something remarkable happened. Marcus began to trust him. Dad said he'd teach me to play chess. Did you know he was a champion when he was a kid? Aurora looked up from her paperwork to see her son bouncing with excitement. The word dad had slipped out naturally, easily, as if it had always been there. I didn't know that. He said he hasn't played in years because he didn't have anyone to play with. But now he has me. He said, I remind him of himself when he was my age. Aurora felt something crack open in her chest. Not pain. Something softer. Something like healing. I'm glad you two are getting along, sweetheart. Are you mad at him still? The question caught her off guard. I was mad for a long time, Marcus. He hurt me very badly. I know. He told me. He said he was a coward and he threw away the best thing that ever happened to him. He said he spent 9 years trying to become the man you deserved. Aurora blinked back unexpected tears. He said that? He says it a lot. He also says you're the strongest person he's ever known, that you built an empire from nothing, that you're his hero. Marcus tilted his head. I think he still loves you, Mom. Aurora didn't know what to say, so she just hugged her son and let the question hang in the air, unanswered. One evening, Damon found Aurora alone in her office. I need to say something. Aurora braced herself. I was wrong about everything, Aurora. You weren't just a nurse. You were the love of my life, and I was too much of a coward to fight for you. He moved closer, his eyes holding hers. I'm not asking for another chance. I know I don't deserve one. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know the truth. You were never less than. You were always everything. The only mistake in our relationship was mine. Aurora felt the wound she had carried for 9 years, finally beginning to truly heal. Thank you for saying that. Her voice was soft. I needed to hear it. I'll spend the rest of my life making up for what I did. To Marcus, and to you, even if you never love me again. Even if all we ever are is co-parents. I will spend every day proving that I'm not the man who let you go. Aurora looked at him, really looked. And for the first time in 9 years, she saw something other than the monster who had destroyed her. She saw a man who had been broken by his own choices. A man who had spent years putting himself back together. A man who was trying, genuinely trying, to become someone worthy. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, she said honestly. I don't know if the damage can be undone. Some things, once broken, stay broken. I understand. But, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Marcus doesn't have to be one of them. And maybe neither do I. I'm not making any promises, Damon. I'm not saying I forgive you, but I'm saying that I'm willing to try, to see if the man you've become is someone I can learn to know again. Damon's eyes filled with tears. That's more than I deserve. Yes, it is. So don't waste it. Aurora stood at her office window, watching the San Francisco skyline glitter in the evening light. 9 years ago, she had stood in a similar spot, broken and bleeding from betrayal. She had thought her life was over, that she would never recover from the devastation. She had been wrong. From the ashes of that destruction, she had built something extraordinary, a career that commanded respect around the world, a son who was her heart and her purpose, a life that proved beyond any doubt that her worth was not determined by anyone else's ability to see it. And now, against all odds, she had something she never expected, a second chance, not with the Damon who had thrown her away. That man was gone, destroyed by his own choices and the weight of his regrets. But perhaps with this new version, this broken, honest, transformed man who was trying so hard to become worthy of what he had lost. She didn't know if it would work, didn't know if the wounds could ever fully heal, didn't know if love could grow again from the scorched earth of their history. But she knew one thing for certain. She was no longer just a nurse. She was Dr. Aurora Blake, chief of surgery, medical pioneer, single mother who had built an empire from nothing. And whatever came next, she would face it the same way she had faced everything else, with strength, with grace, with the unshakable knowledge that she was and had always been more than enough. If you're watching this and you've been told you're not good enough by a boss, a partner, a family member, anyone, I want you to remember Aurora's story. Your worth is not determined by someone else's ability to see it. Your value doesn't decrease because someone fails to recognize it. You are the architect of your own life. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success. It's happiness. It's becoming the person who proves everyone wrong without saying a single word. If this story moved you, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Every week, I share stories of transformation, redemption, and the incredible power of the human spirit. Like this video if you believe in second chances. Comment below and share your success revenge story. What did you overcome when someone said you couldn't? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And share this video with someone who needs to remember that their worth isn't determined by others. Thank you for watching until the end. Your support means everything. Until next time, keep believing in yourself, even when no one else does. Because you might just be one decision away from becoming the person you were always meant to be.